You can model excellence, you can prepare every time, you can reference policy calmly, you can ask sharper questions, and you can still burn out. Because excellence cannot survive on personality alone. No matter how committed you are, if the organization has no structure reinforcing those behaviors, your effort is just a personal project, not a culture. And personal projects end when the person does. Many organizations don't build the right systems. They find heroes instead. The hyper-prepared board member, the detail-obsessed owner, the manager who actually reads the reports. As long as that person is present, things function. Standards are held, decisions are sound. But they step away, they retire, they move on, or they burn out. And then standards drop, not because people got lazy, but because the standard was never embedded anywhere. It lived in one person. When that person left, it left with them. That is not culture. That's dependence. And dependence is fragile by definition. A system does three things. It defines, it measures, and it reviews. Without definition, standards are subjective. Everyone has their own version of what prepared means or accountable means or what excellence means. Without measurement, standards are invisible. You can't course correct what you can't see or know what to look for. Without review, standards drift quietly, incrementally, until the gap is too wide to close without conflict. This is why structured frameworks exist. It's not as motivational wallpaper as diagnostic tools. Measurement isn't about pressure or surveillance. It's about calibration. It tells you where you are relative to where you said you'd be. The other thing most organization drift happens from is a lack of review. They create strategy once, they write policy once, they define values once, and then they move on and assume that because it was said once, it should hold. But it doesn't hold. Excellence requires rhythm, regular check-ins, periodic reviews, annual calibrations, or recalibrations, not to punish deviation, but to catch that drift in standards early. When correction is still low cost, without that rhythm, entropy wins every single time. Personal responsibility thrives when expectations are explicit, not assumed, explicit. If preparation is expected before meetings, state it and build confirmation into the process. If bylaws govern a decision, put the relevant section in the agenda package. If a standard matters, design the environment so that meeting it is the path of least resistance. Don't assume excellence. Design for it. The gap between we expect this and we've structured for this is where most organizational standards die. So this is where some sort of a framework matters. In my case, that's going to be the adaptive strategy design framework. I think it's great. But this is where it matters. Core values tell you who you are and how you behave. Vision tells you where you're going. Mission tells you what you're doing to get there. But none of that is operational without measurement. This is where OKRs and KPIs come into play. OKRs, or whatever other vision achievement tool fits you, makes excellence visible. It translates values into behavior, behavior into outcomes, and outcomes into something you can actually review. If excellence can't be seen in behavior, measured in outcome, and reviewed on a cadence, it's going to fade. Not because people don't care, but because invisible standards have no gravity. So this is our third episode. If you haven't noticed, I'm going to give you the through line. Episode 1 was drift happens when responsibility is optional. Episode 2 is about raising standards. It's socially risky, but without consistency, it's not going to happen. Episode 3, that's today. Even courageous, consistent people are going to burn out without a structure to back them up. It's where systems enter the game. Ownership plus systems equals sustainability. Without systems, the most committed people in your organization will eventually stop carrying the weight alone. With systems, the culture can stabilize and it can survive the people who built it. So look closely at your organization and look honestly at your organization. Where are you relying on one person's commitment to hold a standard that should be part of the structure of the organization? Where is preparation assumed but never designed for? Where does your cadence break down? Fix one of those this month. Not with a speech, but with a structure. Because standards alone that aren't embedded are temporary. Tomorrow, we're going to go to the other side of this. Because systems can't replace character. They only amplify it. And that's where personal responsibility becomes our final piece.